Good morning, everyone. Today is our Clearwater County Special Council meeting of Tuesday, December 19th. All public meetings are live streamed and recorded. Any written or verbal information provided will be included in public documents as per the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, FOIP 41. So I'll call the meeting to order at 9:01. There is an agenda before us. I need adoption of the agenda, please. Thank you, Councillor Lougheed. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Looking at the 2024 budget, item 3.1, I will turn it over to Ms. Sirhan.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome, Council, to the 2024 budget approval special meeting. I'm going to walk through a couple of things before we get to some discussion, but you'll notice that there are three agenda items and three sets of recommendations based on having the ability for council members to recuse themselves if they so choose. And we'll go through that a little bit more as we go along. So attached to the first agenda item is the report supporting the recommendations from the Strategic Planning Committee meeting made during the December 6th and 7th budget deliberations to fund and expend the 2024 operating and capital budgets. So total funding sources for 2024 total $107,380,833. It includes tax revenue of $54,188,445. Transfers from restricted surplus of just over $34 million, and other revenues of just over $19 million. These funds are funding programs and projects in their entirety of $107,380,833. Operating is $51,713,665. Capital projects of $40,366,896. Future and current year projects of $14,866,673. So that means there would be some projects, some capital projects in that in the current 2024, and some of that is going into restricted surplus to fund future projects. And the payment of the long-term debt of $433,000, which is the last year that we have two payments on that debenture. In 2025, there's only one payment left, and that debenture will be fully paid. The amortization budget for 2024 is estimated at $23,500,000, which is not funded. There are several programs that have budget in 2024 that need funding decisions past 2024. Those are the projects that have planning or engineering dollars expended in 2024, which would not be, if those projects were moved, it wouldn't waste those engineering dollars. Those plans and project details would just wait until that project moved forward. And some of it is scope needs to be decided at a future strategic planning meeting by the committee. Some of the major ones include the Nordic Development Plan, the Solid Waste Management Plan, some of the core infrastructure projects, as well as the facility projects. The scope and order of these plans will be discussed at the first planning committee meeting, strategic planning committee meeting in January. So on the four-year financial plan, you'll see that 2024 is balanced, and what that means is, as noted in the agenda item, the amount of funds that are being generated balanced to the amount of funds that are either being expended or put into a restricted surplus for future spending or being paid on the principal of the long-term debt. So in 2024, you can see that operating revenues are $62.5 million. The operating expenses are $51.7 million, and restricted funds used for operations is $4.5 million. leaving $15.3 million in excess or a surplus from the operations of Clearwater County. And then that goes into the next section, which is the capital purchases that go to support those operating programs. So the capital revenues, mostly grant revenues, some sale of assets of $10.8 million. Capital expenditures, as noted, just about $4 million. And funds that were placed into restricted surplus in a past year are now being expended of $29.5 million. Then we have the principal payment of $433 and the surplus that's going into designation for future use or current use in this case. Bringing the change to unrestricted surplus of 0 for a budget. Of course, once we get actuals, that will change and has never been 0. We always manage to save $5 somewhere, right? The preliminary numbers on the 4-year financial plan are exactly that. They're preliminary numbers based on past council or this council and strategic planning committee revenues and expenses for operations, restricted funds that are usually a restricted fund being used in operations is something that didn't get completed in a previous year that's being carried into a future year. Sometimes it's a partner capital project that's considered operations for Clearwater County. Capital revenues in those years are estimated for grant revenues. Capital expenditures, again, is just based on past discussions, and those will change as the Strategic Planning Committee meets over 2024 to discuss how the 10-year capital plan is actually going, how the Strategic Planning Committee wants to recommend to Council that for the 10-year capital plan, which projects and in which year. One of the major changes that administration made was to kind of separate out the capital projects that were supporting those programs that were really set and by past councils and support a service level that likely wouldn't be changed. And then there's a section that are projects and that either don't affect a service level or support a changing service level, and those are the ones that really need to be delved into over the next year to decide what scope. I'm just going to use the waste transfer sites as an example. That management plan set forth and what was placed in the 10-year capital plan was kind of the most expensive option, but there are other options available. So as the strategic planning committee works through that plan in 2024 to decide what facilities they're going to support and in which locations, and all of that information that needs to be talked about and discussed and decided on will change those numbers for the capital expenditures in the future. And the restricted funds used for TCA, again, are just those estimates based on those past discussions, but again, will change likely significantly over, maybe not in dollar amounts, but where those dollars are being assigned over the next year as the Strategic Planning Committee gets into that more future looking at the 10-year capital plan. Administration plans on having this 4-year financial plan available to the Strategic Planning Committee at the beginning and end of every strategic planning meeting, so that they can see how their decisions affect the plan moving forward in 25, 6, 7, and likely 28, so that we can have that that next four-year financial plan look more how the committee sees it as far as the projects that are on it. Is there any questions? Oh, and again, the principal on the long-term debt, you can see in 2025 is 223,000, being that one payment in June. There's a payment in June and a payment in December every year, but that loan will be paid off in June of 2025. So that's why that's lower in 2025, and then the unrestricted funds designated for future use. Again, this is just based on past, and we expect these numbers to change significantly. It's just a requirement of the MGA to have this financial plan approved, and then changes made throughout the year is the expectation. The reports that are attached are the big picture overview of the operations broke down by department, and the expenditures for capital broke down by department. Any questions on the first agenda item?
Yes, looking at Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Eve. This unrestricted funds designated for future use, is that mostly project carry forwards?
No, that's the dollar amount that's generated, the surplus that's generated intentionally to put towards things like your asphalt overlay program, your bridge rehab program, those capital projects that support your operating programs.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Mr. Hearn? I think it's been laid out very well, and I think we've reiterated the fact that, yes, going over the next year, having our strategic planning meetings going forward, first one on the 15th of January, we can deep dive into the projects again, and as outlined during our 2 days of deliberation.
Yep.
So anyways, any further questions? If not, I'll be looking to entertain motions. Councillor Northcott.
I've asked this question before, but just ask one more time. Is there a creation or any fund that's been created to fund a future fire hall in the southern portion of Clearwater County?
Mr. Hearn?
So in the strategic planning meetings, being that the change for how we were putting forward the capital projects that support the operating programs, the additional funds that need to be generated for future projects that aren't currently on the 10-year capital plan, it wasn't discussed. So the only funds going into unrestricted or restricted surplus from unrestricted surplus is things for those annual programs that are supporting those core services. So asphalt overlay, bridge rehab, all of the fleet, just those core services. So one of the first things we need to tackle in 2025 is talking about how we're going to generate funds to support those other projects that are on that list that aren't necessarily supporting those core infrastructure needs, or in some cases it is a core service. It's just never been looked at as a long-term funding because maybe they only get replaced every 50 years, and we're getting to a point where maybe some of the infrastructure needs to be replaced, and we haven't been putting funds aside for 50 years for those infrastructure needs. So that's one of the things that the strategic planning committee needs to look at seriously in the beginning of 2024.
Oh, Mr. Emmons, sorry.
Thank you. And if I may add to Rhonda's explanation, at this time, being in a regional system, one of our partners is the Village of Caroline, another municipality. That agreement actually states that the fire hall is the Village of Caroline's responsibility and contribution into the partnership. So in that partnership, Clearwater County wouldn't have a need to create a reserve for another building. We go through with amalgamation, that would change that dynamic and picture, and then their infrastructure would become part of the bigger picture of all our infrastructure, and council of the day would priority set. But if that also helps.
It does somewhat, but even just in the southern portion of the county, if you were just in the southern portion of the county, but I know through many of the reports that we've seen from emergency services, Caroline's Fire Hall is often the second busiest fire hall, with the second, in many of the reports, the second busiest, but the second most first call primary response on scenes, even more than sometimes other combined fire halls. That fire hall in the southern portion of the county is the oldest, smallest, pulls out onto provincial highway. So I know I have mentioned it before that I think it is a priority for the area and residents, visitors, tourists, all people really that come to the region. I know I've mentioned it before that I do think it is a priority to have a fund created for the future funding of that. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
All right, more blinky lights, great. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. Councillor Northcott, I agree with you. Perhaps we need to reopen the agreement, depending on how amalgamation goes. And we can look at something like building a new fire hall and then doing a fee for service to the Village of Caroline. Perhaps that's a solution forward.
Councillor Graham.
Mine is on a different topic.
On a different
so
topic?
if-
Would you, are speaking to the topic at hand, Councillor Rockcliffe? No? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so we'll move on to a different topic. Go ahead, Councillor Graham.
Okay, my topic is, you guys probably looking at this notice that there are not things that I recuse myself for that are separated out, and I just wanted to explain why that was before we go ahead with the motion and everything. And after speaking with administration on it, and you know, there were things that I was recusing myself for because people are contracted to them that I've never, in the almost 10 years of being involved in these programs, contracted to. And maybe CAO Emmons would like to speak to his explanation of how I am able to influence things from this seat, but that is why those things are not separated out, because I cannot influence them from the seat. So, and I don't work for them also. So I just wanted to say that so you guys aren't like, what the heck is going on in her brain? So just to explain that, and if CAO Emmons would like to touch on it as well, feel free, or not to. But,
Okay, yes, CAO Emmons, please.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson, and thank you, Councillor Graham. Absolutely. I did reach out to Councillor Graham simply because I felt that her ethics brought her to a point where she was abstaining from more than, in my opinion, what's needed or required. And it's only a testament to her character. But saying that, it's direct influence. And that was my conversation. She has no authority to direct who is hired, but approving the program is not a conflict. It's no more of a conflict, in my opinion, than every one of you to sit in these seats have to be a taxpayer of Clearwater County. How can you vote on the tax rate bylaw? That's a direct impact to your pocket, your governance, and it's global. So we had that conversation, and I can easily get into examples of equipment, but I won't take this council's time. There is no opportunity. It always lays on the ethics of a councillor as an individual. Councillor Graham still felt uncomfortable with the gravel road rehab project. Absolutely, entirely her decision. I personally, from administration's perspective, do not have a concern, simply for the reasons stated. She has no opportunity to direct administration to tell us who is hired when, let alone whether or not it's contractor or hourly. But she still made that higher level decision, and we absolutely respect that.
Thank you for that explanation. So, looking, Counselor Ratcliffe, comments, questions in regards to,
I have some questions about the asphalt overlay, but thank you, Chief Emmons and Councillor Graham, for taking that step. I felt we were missing some important input with the amount that Councillor Graham was stepping out, so I think this is a good thing to do. Regarding the asphalt overlay, I'm wondering when the Beaver Flats road was last resurfaced.
I see that Director Hansen will join us here.
And is that a ban-free road?
Good morning, Mr. Hansen.
Yes, good morning. So in regards to the Beaver Flats Road, I'm going to say, top of my head, it's going to be 2009, 2010 is when it was overlaid, and it is not a ban-free road currently. It is always banned at 90% during our spring thaw.
Would another overlay take that to a ban-free status?
Yes, it would.
Okay. I've looked at all of the roads listed here, and to me, the Timey Road, the Rainbow Ford Road, and the Airport Access Road are really in quite good condition at this point. The Airport Access Road, the only real issue there is the change in elevation at the bridge. So there's quite a bump there. Regarding the Bunch Road, we have paving scheduled in Leslieville, have we not, in 2024?
That's correct, yep.
And the Bunch Road could be included with that?
That's the intent, yeah.
Yes, okay. Because I think that we could delay the Timey Road and the Airport Access Road in addition to the Rainbow Ford Road that we've already discussed for probably another 2 years. Beaver Flats is not in nearly as good a condition as those. And if those funds could be used instead for the gravel road rehab program, would there be any concerns in making that adjustment?
I would believe Mr. Mr. Emmons. Okay, Mr. Emmons, CO Emmons.
Probably better listening to Rhonda and Eric. I'll give you my humble opinion, Councillor Ratcliffe. I would have concerns with the timing. It's showing some structural issues at this time, postponing an overlay. That overlay would protect the infrastructure underneath, and it is showing rutting, cracking. You are feeling those culverts now, which shows a base issue that needs to be protected.
There's a frost heave there that seems to show up every year.
The opposite, actually. It's going down around the pipes, which is more of a concern. So I would caution the timing. I will defer to Rhonda and Eric, but that would be my humble opinion.
Mr. Han?
Yes, so all of the asphalt overlay in 2024 is funded through grant revenue. So currently, asphalt overlay is a program that is easily approved, especially in the Federal Gas Tax Fund grant. It's one that they really like to see in that granting application, and there's been about 4 years that hasn't been used for that grant, so the entirety of the asphalt overlay in 2024 is being used by grant funding. And I would just caution that governance is about setting the service level, and then administration would indicate, you know, how best the dollars are spent to achieve that service level. So the experts go out and see which roads need overlay in which years, and then governance decides, is overlay on that road what we want as far as the service level for paving on that road.
Did you want to follow up? Okay. Councillor Ratcliffe?
There's a time limit on using some of those grant funds as well, is there?
Ms. Horan?
There is a time limit. I think the federal gas tax fund is 6 years. And I think we're actually in 2024 into the 5th year in the first year that didn't get used is the 5th year in 2024. And it's about 700,000 per year.
Okay, thank you.
I would concur with how administration has laid out those particular grant funds. Our director understands how the imminent of protecting the base. Roads are legislative, so we got to ensure that our roads are safe. So with this, so that might, as far as a change of service level in those particular roads, I think that might be, a discussion during strategic planning. But I think the dollars still need to be allocated regardless because they are in budget. We can always adjust throughout the year. So, any extra comments, Mr. Director Hansen?
Yeah, so I guess our work plan, we have a huge upcoming 2024. So with that, unless council does want to revisit the road list, come the first quarter of 2024, we typically start tender development January 3rd is when we basically, once we know that the budget's approved, we have the work plan, we provided the road list in order to get ahead of some of the other paving projects in the province to try to ensure that we get the best pricing. So if we'd like to talk about the road list, I'd prefer that we actually get that settled today, then instead of revisiting it, unless this council doesn't feel that's appropriate today and you want to revisit in the new year. As the farther we push that down, the less likely we are to get as good of cost savings as we have in the past. A lot of the road listings a lot of it's combined just due to proximity to other projects as well. So when we're looking at, really there's no better cost benefit to do, I'm going to come back to Rainbow Ford Road, than doing Timey, because Timey Road has a larger tonnage. So our small portion of Rainbow Ford Road, for example, compared to adding the small portion of the town, there's really not going to be a huge, there won't be a cost benefit combining with the town project. Likely because we're going to be moving our focus of our overlays to somewhere else. So then the mobility actually increases for the cost to come back. So, and same with Beaver Flats, Airport Road, Timey, as you can see, they're all in general proximity to each other. So the idea would be that a contractor can get a centralized pit and then have a short move to each one of these roads, still accomplishing the policy direction the council has to try to get to ban-free standard. These roads are all now right at that 15, 16-year-old life cycle. So in order to, so we don't completely degrade those structures, it's time to get them covered up again. And then, like I say, still accomplish the goal number one in the policy, which is to get them to ban-free. So that's why those roads are recommended. Some are in better shape than others, yes, but they are chosen to be in proximity because you don't want to have roads in the north and roads in the south because it's not economical.
Yes, great strategy for efficiency in that end. So the conversation or the direction of council, there's been a suggestion to change our priorities on that. Looking for discussion. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. My big one was Rainbow Ford, which was addressed during strategic planning. It just, to me, does not make sense unless the town is also committing to their portion. So I appreciate that has been delayed in order to have those conversations with our municipal neighbor. We discussed Timey already and discussed some of the issues with the corners there. So I was pleased with the answers that I got from that. The airport road, I have I'm curious about it, but I think that we will have the opportunity to discuss that as well. Mainly the bridge as well. Like, are we solving that problem on an overlay or not? Like, the road itself seems great, but I'm not a road engineer. I'm not a asphalt engineer, any of that. But that bridge is not great. And don't they like drag planes behind vehicles sometimes? Or wouldn't that cause an issue? Like, try to make it as good as possible, right?
Director Hansen?
Yeah, unfortunately, bridges and roads, they're two different monsters, because a bridge is typically anchored right down to bedrock, whereas a road, especially when you're coming into a bridge area, is typically floated in. So the frost reacts differently to the road. So even like the process would include actually milling away from the bridge, doing a really nice transition, and for summer of 2024, it'll probably be the best it's ever been. After winter of 2025, the frost tends to react differently, and sometimes you get those transitions. The best thing with bridges is to reduce your speed. You know, we do the best that we can to make that transition as good as we can. But there again, it's two dissimilar materials coming together, and you have that frost fluctuation. That's really unavoidable.
Follow-up?
Yes, go ahead. Awesome, thank you, Reeve. So some of the work that's gonna be happening around there could help some of that transition. So the overlay I just thought was overlay, but you will be doing some potential groundwork to help with some of those issues.
Yeah, for sure. So
Okay.
we always mill the transition. So back in 2010, 2011, it was actually a developer that paved the first mile of the airport access road up to their development. The county subsequently cost shared to, when we did our development on the west side of that road. What has always been left is that last mile going up to the airport. And it has been a restrictive ban on, especially during fire season, when they want to move equipment in there for standby, for example. That portion does get banned to 90%. There again, also, we're just in proximity to the other projects. You know, they come to the end of that 15-year cycle. It would be good to get that to a ban-free. Now, that is really the focus, is try to get these up to a ban-free structure, so that we can have more mobility of our industry and less hindrance on those types of services.
No, thank you for that. I do appreciate that the overlay makes it ban-free, because I actually didn't know that. That's a new, I didn't realize that doing the overlay actually puts it ban-free. It was always my understanding that you actually had to go down and redo the base structure in order to make a ban-free road. So that's new, and I appreciate that, because like you said, that has always been a priority within Clearwater, so thank you.
Councillor Ratcliffe?
Thank you, Reeve. Pardon me. What sort of savings would be typically realized? Sorry, won't go away. Would typically be realized by being able to do this volume of overlay?
Compared to not,
Compared to doing it in smaller batches?
well, if you look at the magnitude of the budget, you know, you're looking at the $500 and $600, or $5 or $6 million. Sometimes it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings trying to combine projects together, you know, and then it's really we always try to get, say, the best advantage when it comes to, because these are high dollar projects. When you start trying to have a isolated project off in a distant area, the other method that you could use is actually having that as a deletable. That way, if this one was priced out individually, and then similar to what this council did with Bunch Road earlier this spring, is that we look at the price of that project individually, and if that comes in over budget, then we could actually have that removed from the list without disrupting the entire program. So most years, we actually combine all the projects together, because as you add deletables, you actually add risk to the contractor, because if everything was deletable and you went down to a single project, the contractor has to calculate in the risk that all those would be deleted, so therefore they actually have to increase their price per tone to make up for that risk. So there's advantages to having, say, one project deletable, but having all projects or all schedules deleted on a project contract has risk in itself.
Which equates to dollars.
Absolutely. Risk is always dollars.
Thank you for that explanation.
You bet.
All right, so is it the will of council here to just, Council Ratcliffe had suggested maybe postponing, or are you changed your mind now?
We should go ahead with the recommendation.
Okay, all right, so no need for discussion, extra discussion there, okay, awesome. If there's no further discussion on the items, I'm looking for motions. Councillor Northcott.
Alrighty. One more question. This one's regarding seniors housing. I've talked about this again in the past. Does Clearwater County have any account or restricted account created for, any future funding of a seniors housing project in the southern portion of the county?
CEO Emmons.
Thank you, Reeve Swanson. At this time, we don't. Council has not identified that as one of their priorities. Should that come into a future strategic plan, administration would be directed accordingly. But at this time, there is not, Councilor Northcott, no.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. I have mentioned it in the past in strategic planning sessions. But yes, takes the will of council to move that forward. However, I have mentioned that there was surveys that were completed by residents, and it was a highly desirable feature. There's also the Alberta government has had discussions. There's with seniors housing granting. I don't sit on the seniors housing board or anything like that. Maybe one year I will be able to. I would really like that opportunity. But I know that the Alberta government does have discussions about seniors housing grants, funding. A lot of seniors are still very healthy. They're willing, able, but they just maybe don't want to mow a significant amount of grass, and they don't want to shovel snow in driveways and stuff like that. So I think it would assist in many bona fide needs applications and possibly reduce subdivision of rural land. So, it wouldn't have to be completely constructed by Clearwater County administration, but maybe if there was an account created that could possibly work with a future partnership with maybe private sector business and or, if there was a municipal corporation started. But I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, you bring up a very relevant topic that's been on the topic, I would say, for the last 5 years, housing in general. So with that, and anyways, and it's brought to the forefront through our federal government right now. So anyways, and we got support through the province. So, Ms. Serhan, please.
Also seniors housing, in general, the organizations that are formed through the province are able to requisition the ratepayers of the municipality that they're in. So if that is, that would be an increased service level that would increase the amount of taxes that were paid in Clearwater County, and also be an ongoing expense, just like the seniors housing is within Rocky Mountain House.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
One last quick question about Beaver Flats Road. Would an overlay allow the speed limit to be increased on that road?
Director Hansen.
Unfortunately not. No, it's a geometric concern. Horizontal alignment that's been pre-existing was never addressed in the grading of that road. So unfortunately, the overlay does not address that concern.
Thank you.
Councillor Northcott.
Yeah, no comment.
Okay. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. Ms. Serhan, even though we have these restricted funds, they can be shuffled around if priorities change. At any point, we can make adjustments should opportunities come, i.e. grants from the federal or provincial governments, or the priorities of communities change. We have the ability to shuffle some of those things around. They're not locked in the plan that they've been put in.
Ms. Serhan.
Absolutely correct. It's the will of council that they are in the restricted surplus accounts that they are currently in, and it only takes a motion from council to move them.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. All right. If If there's no further discussion, we have 3 staff recommendations before us. And looking for motions. Counselor Graham.
I'll be the brave one. It's always very intimidating with the budget. It's such a huge amount of money, and especially in these times when things are pretty tough on people, it's pretty intimidating numbers, but I believe that the service levels brought forward in this budget are appropriate and they reflect the whole of Canada's council throughout strategic planning all of this year. So I will make the motion that staff approves Clearwater County's 2024 operating budget, excluding broadband operations, for a total of $49,626,693, being funded through operating revenues of $62,513,392 and transfers from restricted surplus of $4,500,545, leaving $17,387,244 to fund the balance of operating principal debt repayment and transfers to restricted surplus.
Can you repeat that 5 times?
I am not capable of that.
Okay. That's fair, that's fair. Yes, I just want to make a correction that you had said staff recommends, it's council recommends. So it was just a slip of the tongue, but that's okay, that's okay. I think we all know what you meant. I hear you, I hear you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. All right. There's a second second staff recommendation there in regards to restricted surplus. Anyone that would like to make a motion? Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
I can take a turn. The council approves Clearwater County's 2023, or is that supposed to say 2024? Yes? Yes. Okay, the council approves Clearwater County's 2024 budgeted restricted surplus transfers of $14,866,673 and debt payment of $433,599 being funded through general municipal revenues.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Carried. All right. We have one more staff recommendation before us in regards to the capital budget. Thank you, Councillor Law.
That motion as outlined in staff recommendation number 3.
Oh, cheater. Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. All right. So moving on to item 3.2. I'll pass the floor back to administration.
Thank you. So in the second item is the report related to broadband operations, supporting the recommendation from the Strategic Planning Committee and the Broadband Committee to fund and expend the 2024 operating, this item's not written very well. I apologize. So this was recommended through the Broadband Committee to the Strategic Planning Committee, and now coming to Council to expend the operations for the broadband program. This recommendation has been separated to enable individual councillors to abstain from voting for any of the programs or projects that they feel may be perceived as a conflict of interest, or that influencing the decisions on these programs or projects could result in personal gain.
Thank you. All right. I have a question right off the top, and that's directed to Director Hagan. Do we know when the next Broadband Committee meeting is?
Thank you, Reeve. Good morning, Council. The exact date hasn't been planned, but it will occur in January.
It will be in January?
So
Okay,
we'll inform council when that date has been chosen and the meeting has been set.
okay, thank you so much. All right, there is a motion before us. Councillor Ratcliffe?
Yes. Pardon me again. Just have some comments on this. When this current broadband program was announced, the industry clearly stated that backbone only wasn't viable.
I'm going to interrupt you here, Councillor Ratcliffe. Respectfully, if there's a comment in this regard, I feel it should be brought to the Broadband Committee through an email. This is, we've gone through a process over the last year in regards to how we formed the committee, and respectfully, I think it should be brought to the committee at this particular point in time. In that regards, if there was a comment to be made, I would have respectfully liked it ahead of time to know that this was something that was going to be coming forward. And that's, it's not a point of, I guess it would be a point of order. So, in my mind. Councillor Northcott, do you have something to add to this?
It's for this item, but.
Oh,
not on
okay,
the-
no, I'm just wanting to know for this discussion. So, if this is in regards to Councillor Ratcliffe.
It's
that's-
not in,
Okay,
it's
so-
regard to this agenda item, but not Councillor.
Okay, that's fine.
Ratcliffe's statements.
So, Councillor Ratcliffe, I will respectfully ask you to submit your comments in an email, if you could, and bring it to the Broadband Committee versus this table, please.
It's a budget item
Correct?
that I believe I have a right to vote on and to comment on.
I would respectfully disagree with you on that, because we have gone through a process during our first year of which we formed this committee to help protect the organization and protect yourself in this regard. And so we do have legal matters that we've had a legal opinion in this, and we have also been able to have that discussion. So respectfully, I'm going to call a 10-minute recess, and we'll go from there. to the, thank you and welcome back to our special meeting of December 19th. We just coming back from an extended break, so thank you for your patience. We were on item 3.2 in regards to the strategic planning committee recommendations for the budget approval of the broadband operations. All right. So as Mr. Hand had outlined earlier, there was a recommendation in regards from the committee coming forth for us, and the numbers are outlined in front. So looking for discussion or motions. I'll go Councillor Northcott.
Thank you. Question for administration. For the funding for the broadband operations program here, is this funding required to be able to offer a service to residents and utilize the existing infrastructure that is in place? And if this was not approved, would there be a service that could be offered to residents, or not? Is this funding required to be able to offer service? I guess that's my question.
CO Emmons.
Thank you. So the funding represented here enables the operation of the system to allow an ISP to sign on. That's the point it brings it to. So as council's policy with an open access network, we're doing core fiber, which allows the opportunity for an ISP to engage with Clearwater County, sign a contract, and supply the service to the door.
Okay,
Subsequent, yeah.
So if this funding was not approved, then previous investment that was made in the project would not be able to be utilized, and no service could be offered without this funding.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
I would like to make a motion that council approves the broadband operations program of $2,086,972, funding of $350,000 through broadband revenues and $1,736,972 through other operating revenues.
Thank you. Discussion. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. I made my position on broadband pretty clear at the strategic planning committee meeting. I will be voting against this today. I do not agree with hiring another IT project manager, technician, while we still have one in place for a program that we are not currently funding capital investment of. I feel that that position would be redundant and could be changed if the direction of this particular program was to change. So I'll be voting against this today.
Councillor Northcott.
Alrighty. I see these dollars and they could be used to fund the other priorities I talked about earlier. Anyways, to the point. For this item here, I'm curious to see what will happen over the next year with the ISPs and any service that can be offered, or how this plays out for the next year. So I'll support this for this year, but I really want to see what the results are. I feel like if this wasn't supported, the previous investment would all be lost. And I don't know, it's so close to be just right there. So I really want to just see what happens over the next year with this.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Cermak.
Yeah, I'm so confused on all of this. We're saying that we're going to use $2 million to keep broadband alive, and $350,000 of that is going to come from revenue. Where does that revenue come from? Have we got people hooked up, or is that proposed hookup or assumed hookup?
Director Hagan.
Thank you, Reeve. As CAO Emmons indicated, that revenue is anticipated to start flowing into the county in 2024, coming from telecom providers or internet service providers that will in turn sell services to customers. So we don't, according to the broadband policy, we don't anticipate direct revenue from the end users. We anticipate the revenue to come from the service providers. And And that is our best estimate at this point, conservatively speaking, of what we anticipate seeing in 2024. And it does align with the business plan that's been approved by the committee.
Subsequent?
I would like to mimic what Councillor Northcott had said. I'm in favor of this budget this year, but it certainly could be a way different story come January or February on this, unless something is proven to me that this is a reasonable thing to go ahead with. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Ratcliffe,
I'd like to request a recorded vote.
recorded vote. Okay. I know this has been a path that we've been on for a while, and in my conversations with some of the ratepayers, and especially, I will say, some of the young people that I've been talking to, they're excited about this. So they're seeing their future in this project. So how we handle it the next year, I'm hopeful for more good news, and hopefully that as both Councillor Northcott and Councillor Cermak has said, like 2024 could be a real turnaround, and we have opportunity to make more decisions as a committee. And as I asked before, there's a January committee meeting, so I'm looking forward to those discussions then. So if there's any further discussion, there's a motion on the table. Councillor Northcott?
Just really wanted to make clear the reason I'm supporting this is because of the significant amount of investment that was made, but that's, so.
You bet. All right. I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now moving on to item 3.3. It is the approval for the gravel rehab program. Councillor Graham.
Big surprise to everyone. Because I contracted this program, I'm going to recuse myself for this item.
All right, thank you very much. Yep, oh, okay, Ms. Serhan.
Yeah, just before Councillor Graham leaves, I just wanted to say that there isn't identified motions for approval for the 4-year financial plan and the 10-year capital plan, so we'll, they just were omitted, so we'll have to come back to that once Councillor Graham comes back.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did you want to make comment in regards to this item? Oh, sorry, Councillor Northcott.
I'm gonna recuse myself. Through the gravel road rehabilitation program, there was, there was borrowed material that was bought from my parents, so I just want to step away from the table, so I will be recusing myself just for, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay, attached to the report related to the gravel road rehab program, supporting the recommendation from the Strategic Planning Committee made during the December 6th and 7th budget deliberations to fund and expend the 2024 operating and capital. No, it's just the capital budget for gravel road rehab. This recommendation has been separated to enable individual councillors to abstain from voting for any of the programs or projects that they feel may be perceived as a conflict of interest, or that influencing the decisions on these programs or projects could result in personal gain. So the gravel road rehab program totals $4,938,000, and it's being funded entirely through transfers to restricted surplus in the current year.
Okay. Any discussion? I think as indicated earlier through Councillor Northcott's question, or sorry, Councillor Ratcliffe's question in regards to the grant funding for asphalt overlays. We have funds that have to be used up in a certain amount of time too, so that it's not only federally, that's provincially as well, correct? I'm just down the broad sense.
Right, so there's two main funding sources through grant revenues that Clearwater County has access to. One of them is the Federal Gas Tax Fund, or I think it's called a Community Building Fund now. And that's divided out to the province, or out to the municipalities in Alberta through the province of Alberta, even though the funds come from the federal government. And then it's the MSI, or I think it's calling it LGFF now. And it comes annually through the province for capital projects. And both of those have time limits on expending those dollars. And both of those have been applied to the asphalt overlay program.
Right. Thank you for that. Councillor Lougheed.
Thank you, Reeve Swanson. I noticed earlier on there was an unfunded amortization amount. Does this contribute or somehow to help? Is this one of the things that helps balance that as well?
Yeah, so what unfunded amortization is just that that Clearwater County isn't generating enough revenue to put into restricted surplus the amount of the assets that they're using throughout the year. So gravel road rehab definitely is one of the things that is funded through those additional surpluses that are generated to fund capital assets, along with the fleet and the asphalt overlay and those core services. So this is one of the things that is funded, but you would see in the agenda item that I think about 14 million is going into restricted surplus to fund future projects, and amortization is 23.5 million.
That's great.
So I can get my ideas around that. This concept is that it sounds as though we're underfunding the assets we already have. So if we have our asset management plan, we're not quite keeping up with the amortization of what we have already working to provide our service level. So we're not being very aggressive in this budget on some level.
No. Yes, so an estimated $23.5 million for use of those capital assets. So each asset is kind of analyzed as far as what its useful life would be. So each asset has a certain amount that it's being used up in that current year. So a bridge might be 1/75th because it's going to be amortized over 75 years. And a vehicle might be 1/15th because it's going to be utilized over 15 years. And it's amortized at its cost. So it's what the asset cost in the year it was purchased or constructed. So in the case of a bridge being 75 years from the time it's purchased till its useful life is expended, there's quite a difference in what it costs when it's expended to when it has to be replaced. So even though amortization is based on cost, there's not enough revenue being generated to even cover the past cost of those assets that need to be replaced in the future to keep up with the service levels currently.
Thank you, and I don't want to I may have a further question.
Okay. Deputy Reeve Mello.
Thank you, Reeve. You ended up, the Reeve asked a question regarding grant funding.
Yes.
However, I thought that the gravel road rehab program was always funded through tax revenue historically. Has that changed?
Yes. That was one of the changes that even though it's always been funded through tax revenue, we're just flowing it through restricted surplus. So it's going into restricted surplus in 2024 and coming out in 2024. So
But not grants?
Not grants.
Okay, so
No.
that's what I was confused. I'm like, I thought that this was like an internal program, not something.
No, there's no grants being funded for gravel road rehab.
Councilor Lahi, you said you had another question, or can I make a motion? Yeah, okay. I would move that council approves the gravel road rehab program of $4,938,000 out of transfers from restricted surplus.
Thank you. Discussion around the motion. You have any discussion? No? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We could have both Councillor Northcott and Councillor Graham rejoin us. Awesome. So as indicated when we came back, there's two more motions that we should be making, and that is for the, except for information in regards to the 4-year operational summary and the 10-year capital summary, correct?
Yeah, so there just needs to be approval through the Municipal Government Act states that 3 years of operations and 5 years of capital plans need to be approved. So it's not authorizing administration to make any purchases with those funds. It's just to ensure that planning is happening around the committee and council tables regarding the future years, and that that council and decision makers are considering the future impact of their current decisions. So the 4-year financial plan and the 10-year capital plan requires approval from council.
All right. So there's two separate motions preferred?
It can be in the
or
same motion, actually. It could be unless you want to separate them for some reason.
Okay. So the 4-year and the 10-year are in our packages. The summaries
Correct.
are there. And so as per staff recommendation, except for information, Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. So you said this can be in one motion. That council approve the 4-year financial plan and the 5-year capital plan in principle.
It's a 10-year capital plan. And the MGA requires 5 years. Clearwater County does a 10-year cap.
Okay. Okay, then I would make the motion that council approves the 4-year financial plan and the 10-year capital plan in principle.
Okay. Any discussion on the plans? Okay, Deputy Reeve Melhoff, or sorry, Councillor Northcutt.
Yeah, understand the process here is to have the plan to meet the MGA guidelines. However, if there was, through previous, strategic planning sessions, I did bring up some priorities that I would like to see a little higher up the priority, previous discussed, to, fire hall in the southern portion of the county and to create an account for a seniors housing project as well, or have the creation of an account for that. So, but those aren't in any future plans. So I would be supporting this at that time. Actually, I won't be supporting this currently.
Okay, I would offer that on January 15th, there'll be an opportunity for us to have those discussions and make adjustments as per the will of council at that particular point in time. So anyway, so with any more discussion? Deputy Reeve Melhoff?
Thank you, Reeve. Because we have the ability to change those still, and my motion reflected that by saying in principle, and we will be able to make changes because there's much of the capital plans in the future that we have either not had feedback from the community from, or have not had the opportunity to actually discuss further at the council table. I will be supporting that motion that I have made because we will have the ability to dig a lot deeper into this, and it's not setting any of those things in stone at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Serhan?
Yes, I would just agree with Deputy Reeve Melhoff saying that this is just where the plan is at as of today, and I would suggest that it will change. It will be a different plan after the January 15th meeting, and it will be a different plan after the next strategic planning meeting.
So it'd be fair to say it's a living document. So as this goes through, the councils of today and the future will change it at will, correct? Excellent. So with that, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Reeve. Yes, I would like to see some changes in this, so I'm looking forward to the January meeting where we can go over that. Meanwhile, I will support the motion.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. All right, before we close, since this is our last council meeting of the year of 2023, and before we adjourn, I would like to offer each counselor an opportunity to speak in reflection of the holidays, and I will start on my right with Division 1.
Technically, I'm Division 2.
Oh, Division 2, sorry. Seat number 1, seat 1, 2, 3, sorry, thank you.
Sorry, I'm a jerk sometimes. I guess I would say to our residents, thank you for the many wonderful conversations throughout the year, the many wonderful perspectives offered, all the volunteers out there who make our community the wonderful community that it is. There's so much effort and the generosity, especially this holiday season. I know it's tough, things are tight for people, and still our community is so generous. It's the charity check stops just blew my mind, the generosity at them. And you know, we see all of these things on social media that are so positive, where people are supporting community members, and thank you to all those wonderful individuals. To council, I think we had a really good year. I think we had lots of great moments, and we've made lots of tough decisions, and I think we worked so well through those decisions together, so thank you guys for a great year. And to staff and administration, thank you guys for a great year as well. Your dedication does not go unnoticed. You guys put so much effort into making our county runs so well, and I think we're all extremely fortunate to live here, and the people who work here are a huge part of that. And I'll be hoping that there's no snow on Christmas Day, so that our snowplowers can enjoy the time with their family, and everyone who that affects can enjoy their time. And I hope everyone has a safe holiday, and remember, Christmas is celebrated differently for everyone, so just enjoy what makes you happy. Don't put any pressure on yourself. So have safe holidays, everyone.
Thank you. And I know it's going to sound a little repetitive, and that's okay. I'm just making sure everybody gets an opportunity to say their reflections. So anyways, Councillor Lougheed.
Thank you, Reeve Swanson, and I'm well past the point of just starting to talk and hope something profound comes out. But I think really at this time of year, with all the happenings around the world, I would hope we could all take a moment or two to dream of peace on earth and reflect on that. I think we live with great privilege here, right now. I think we've got a great community, and we need to focus on the positive and pray a little for the world. May this season find you among those you love, sharing generosity, gratitude, and joy.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. I echo my teammates, and I'm sure I will echo what everybody is saying. It's been a wonderful year. I thank council and administration for that. And truly, this community is what makes this place so wonderful. Seeing a community come together when people are in their worst times, and our community pulls together and makes everything as amazing as they can is truly a blessing. I'll try to be as quick as I can. May 2024 be more promising than the year before. Spread the happiness far and wide, and may you have a very safe, healthy, and happy Christmas.
Thank you. Councillor Northcott.
Alrighty. No, just really would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and safe holidays to the residents of Clearwater County and the region.
Very good. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Hello, everyone. We are truly blessed to live in this wonderful area. We have such natural beauty, natural resources, hardworking, wonderful, caring people. Most everything we need is right here. As a counselor, I consider myself to be your servant. I'd like to hear your comments, questions, ideas, concerns, and complaints, so please keep those coming. At this busy Christmas time, I encourage you to find some quiet peace in your lives, but also to find the joy of reconnecting with family, friends, and neighbors. We'll get back down to work again in the new year, so we'll see you all then. May God bless you all.
Thank you. Councillor Cermak.
Mine's going to be sweet, short and sweet. Well, I just wish everybody a safe and healthy Christmas season. And I need to go a little bit on the limb here. And in my opinion...
Are you going to bless the Prime Minister? Sorry.
I would like to say to the Liberal government in Ottawa that I hope that they have a great Christmas in June, because I'm sure it'll take them that long to find 3 wise men. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, thank you, Counselor Starmack. Well, I have to say, thank you so much to the CEO, the administration, the directors, and staff here at Clearwater County. It is, you do your best to do the will of this council and bring us the information, and actually, you guys are the front lines when it comes to our residents too, so you bring forth some of that as well, as far as the opinions and complaints and everything else. So I truly am appreciative of staff. I am appreciative of the residents in our county as well. So we have, as echoed here around the table, we are blessed to be living in the area we are. We're scratching the surface. There's things that are changing, and we have the opportunity to really showcase and invite. And this is not just this generation, it's for the future generations we have making decisions for. And I'm very honored and proud to be sitting here amongst my colleagues and amongst you. And so have a very Merry Christmas. All the best in 2024. Let's hope we work smarter, not harder, and enjoy. So with that, we'll see everyone. I believe it'll be January 9th is our next meeting. And safe holidays, everyone. Motion for adjournment. Yay!
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you so much.